Welcome back, YouTube. Today we are talking about setting up our first arboreal species of tarantula. I have a cage here. Yours may not look exactly like this, but I'm going to try and do a very generalized setup and some improvised setups as well. So this cage in particular was not very good for substrate in general. I don't know what this is supposed to be built for, but maybe if the makers can tell me. This is by Reptile Cage, Canadian. I am Canadian, by the way, and the spider we'll be housing today was purchased from a local Canadian shop called Pisces Pets here in Calgary, Canada, Calgary, Alberta, for you Canadians. And it did come with a care sheet right over here. I'm going to read some details on here. A few points in here that are really important, a few points that I think are less than ideal to have in the care sheet, and I think it's more them just trying to sell you some stuff, which most pet stores do. Generally speaking, Pisces is a great pet store. Their care sheets, on the other hand, like this guy right here, seems a little generic, seems like there's some misinformation in here that's going to cause you to spend more money than you have to, but we'll go through it really quickly and let you know what it is. So this care sheet is a generalized care sheet for rainforest arboreal tarantulas, including pink-toe tarantula, ornamental tarantula, etc., or avicularia species and Poecilotheria species, or Poecilotheria species. The size is going to be 4 to 8 inches depending on the species. So right there, again, super generalized. Already not a big fan of that. Sexing: when full grown, males have small spurs on the knee of the front legs. Females do not have these. Also, females get larger than males. You know, if you want to wait until it's sexually mature, yeah, that's a surefire way to do it. But there's other ways to sex, which can be a whole different video. I'm not going to get into here. But here's where we start to see a lot of the kind of pushing their own products. The enclosure should be approximate for the size and type of tarantula. Arboreal tarantulas need a vertical style terrarium. A 10 to 20 gallon tank is usually sufficient for a single tarantula. I would agree, for an adult, 10 to 20 gallons is typically where I'd put, you know, on the larger side for some of the larger specimens. But yeah, at least, or sorry, where was I? Pisces recommends Exoterra all glass terrariums. I don't really like them, to be honest. They're overpriced. They don't really do well for tarantulas. The mesh on the top isn't the greatest. It can easily be chewed through. Not even just by tarantulas, but also by their prey. So, not a big fan of it. Also, again, seems to be pushing some higher priced items. Hiding and climbing spots. Hiding spots are a must with tarantulas. At least one is good, but two is better in a larger tank. Arboreal species love to climb and explore, so put lots of wood and plants in their tank. Not against this at all. I will be putting some fake plants in here as well. I don't have any on hand. I do have this piece of cork bark though. So that's going in here. I'm going to dress it up a little bit kind of as when I get a chance to, but this is kind of the bare bones basic setup for you guys. But plants are recommended because they use, especially avicularia, will use the plants to anchor themselves or anchor their webbing to the sides of the caging and to the plants, and kind of provide some anchor points around there, as well as the piece of cork bark. So plants are pretty good. I don't know if I'd use live plants, to be honest. I use fake plants. I've always used fake plants. I did try a live plant enclosure with a Somopos or Minia a while back. That didn't work out too well for me. The plants basically all died because they're covered in webs, and just not a fun time. So fake plants are probably the best bet there. They are pretty cheap too, so I mean, I'll give them that. Humidity, here's where I have issues. This is exactly the type of care that got me in trouble the first time I had avicularias. The enclosure should be well ventilated. Check, vents on both sides. And misted well to keep the humidity high, 70 to 90%. No, guys, you don't want to keep missing this. Let it be a dry enclosure. Provide a water dish that they could drink from up at the top level, and that's it, guys. Don't over mist. Don't try and increase humidity. It's just going to lead to a nightmare. It's going to harm your tarantula more than it's going to help it, so I totally disagree with that. Pisces loose forest substrate works well for all species. Yeah, I'm really big on this plantation soil here, the reptile soil from ZooMed. That's what I'll be using here as well. But again, you know, Pisces recommends Exoterra plantation soil. This is ZooMed reptile soil, so not bad. These heat temperatures are way too high. I've never kept spiders this high. You know, at night they're staying like 85 degrees or 75 degrees Fahrenheit to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a heat bulb on one portion of the tank. Don't use a heat bulb, guys. Tarantulas do not need heat bulbs. They do not need heat other than a little bit hotter than room temperature is perfect. This room here is kept at around 78 to 80. Dies down a little bit at night, sorry, to about 70 to 73. So it's perfect in here. You really don't have to do it. You definitely don't have to use bulbs, and don't use heat mats, whatever you do, or heat tape or anything like that. UV lighting, use a full spectrum 5.0 bulb for 12 hours per day is recommended. Fluorescent bulbs lose effectiveness and need to be replaced every 6 to 8 months. Again, you don't need those UV rays. There's no studies that suggest that tarantulas actually benefit from those UV bulbs. It's just a waste of money. While I do agree some reptiles will need it, this is absolutely not necessary, and again, seems like a bit of a upsell in my opinion. There's a bunch of other stuff on here. Feeding, vitamin supplements, no vitamin or mineral supplement is required. Agreed. Just make sure your prey is healthy and well fed. Handling, they're not bad on handling. Handling your tarantula is not recommended unless you're entirely comfortable with it. Do not breathe on your tarantula while handling it. Again, as it will frighten it. I actually agree with that. Don't breathe on your tarantula if you are going to handle a tarantula. That will actually cause it to be more skittish. So that part is correct. Tarantulas can be easily injured if they fall, so be careful not to drop your tarantula. Again, totally agree. If you're going to handle at floor level. Make sure that if it runs, it's not going to fall off a counter or a ledge of any kind. So that is a must. Agree with that. Some require some practice and some should not be handled. Generic again, and considering this is a care sheet for avicularia and Poecilotheria or Poecilotheria, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree that this is just, those two need a separate care sheet for sure. The rest is just generic, safe handling of reptiles, recommended books, recommended supplies. Actually, let's look at that. So they recommend supplies of a glass terrarium. We're using acrylic, a screen top. We actually have well-ventilated side vents, a misting bottle. I do have one of those. I seldom use it, and I definitely won't be using it for this species. A water dish, absolutely a must. A hiding cave. I have some cork bark. It's an arboreal species. You don't need the hide cave down low. It's going to be up top most of the time. Plantation soil. Again, I got the reptile soil. Plants are suggested. I will be getting some, so agreed, that is something I'm missing. Crickets, thermometer, hygrometer, no. I mean, crickets, yeah, prey items for sure. Thermometer, hygrometer, again, just extra stuff you don't have to spend money on. So now that I've read off their care, let's talk about, or let's actually get to setting this enclosure up. And again, yours may not look exactly like this. Yours could look a little bit different. And this is an improvised enclosure. As you can see here, I actually have some like metallic wrapper. This is actually from a fancy pair of socks I got. So all I've done is actually tape this against the side so that it can't kind of leak through. The bottom is somewhat loose, but once the substrate's in there, it'll push up against it. The tank in general, it was cleaned out to the best that I could. I vacuumed it out, wiped it down, but there are some kind of loose debris that I couldn't get to. Here we go. So you can kind of see down there the front. The entrance is right here. Closes. There's little latches for the locks so it can lock shut. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing today, is setting this guy up. If yours looks different, if you did go with an Exoterra, I'm not 100% against them. Just be really careful. For a beginner species like an avicularia, you should be okay. For a Poecilotheria or Poecilotheria, definitely don't do that. So, I mean, unless you want to reinforce the top or something, I'm just not a big fan of them. But, teach their own. So what we're going to do here is fill it with substrate. I have the big bag of reptile soil right here. As you can see, this is what I like using right now. Again, I've only been using this for a short while, so if for whatever reason in the future I find out that this is not working for the tarantulas or not benefiting them in any way, I may switch back or just go back to making my own of 3-to-1 ratio of plantation soil to vermiculite. So again, we're going to pour some in there. I'm going to be pretty generous in here. It doesn't have to be super thick or super deep. This is an arboreal species, but I do want to coat the bottom nicely just to add that little bit of texture to the bottom and really make it look nice, which is what I'm all about. I like the tarantulas kind of being in an environment that looks semi like their natural habitats. Okay, I'm going to start with that. Put it off to the side. We're going to smooth this all out with my smoothing tool, which is somewhere. I'm going to have to go get it, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, I am back. I have my smoothing tool here that I use. Again, this is just from a fish pump, a submersible fish pump, which I'm actually using as a cage right now. But it did come with this, which is an added benefit. And we're just going to kind of spread this substrate around. I'm going to try and have a bit of depth to this one, so I'm going to have a little bit more in the back than in the front for substrate. You can do it however you want. You know, really, it's totally up to you. It's your tarantula, it's your housing. Just make sure you have the proper tools, and that's kind of the main thing. As far as how you escape it, though, that's totally up to you, providing you don't provide anything that is going to be detrimental to the tarantula itself. I'm going to pack it down into there. I like how I got this tool to pack it down and haven't even been using it. All right, that should be good. Gently press it down. Got the ledge right there. You have that kind of bit of an incline up there. Shake that guy off. Time to put the cork bark in. And let's see if that's the height I wanted it at. I want it on a bit of an angle and into the substrate. I'm going to put a little bit more substrate in to anchor that piece of cork bark down so it doesn't fall, but I think that's actually pretty good. All right. Try and shake that off so I don't have any or too much falling. I'm gonna have to vacuum after this anyways, so not much I can do. Spread that around again. Let's get it in there. Again, try and get that cork bark nice and secured. Give a bit of depth to it as well. And that should be pretty much it. All right. Again, just push that substrate down a little bit, compact it in, especially up against that piece of cork bark. And I'm going to say that is looking pretty damn good. What do you guys think? Final product for the cage. Now, of course, we do need a water dish. I have one up here. So I'm going to put this guy in here. These are just like little deli cups. I would have liked to have super glued it in. I don't have any super glue right now, or sorry, not super glue, hot glue with a hot glue gun. Mine just broke. So for now, I'm going to put it on the bottom of the cage in this corner here on the higher part of the substrate. Again, I will change that. You don't have to put it up top, but if you're going to have one on the bottom, maybe put a little bit bigger of a water dish so they can kind of drink from it. Also, I'm going to be misting just the webbing portion of it, just so it can drink off its own web if it wants to. And one other comment here before we kind of do the actual transfer. The reason why I've put this piece of cork bark in this particular corner as opposed to anywhere else in here is to try and discourage the spider from making a web on the doorway. Otherwise, every time I come into the enclosure, I'm going to be ruining its web or its home. And I just don't want that, so I'm trying to encourage it to go that way as opposed to toward the door. So that's why that's been placed there. I think that's important to know. Wherever you decide to place yours, just try and put it away from the entrance of the cage so you can avoid that as well. So with that being said, let's get this guy transferred in. All right, guys, so I've grabbed the tarantula. This is the cage it came in. This is where it was in the shop. They did include in the cage with it, but for a sub-adult avicularia, that is the price I paid on it in Canadian dollars. There is a water dish in here. I'm probably gonna transfer that one in here as well. I'll give him 2 water dishes to kind of roam around and make sure he finds some water there. But yeah, don't house your avicularies in something like this. It's not tall enough for them. And for something this size, probably about 3-inch size, I'd say. It's just way too small for it, and there's just not enough space for it to move around in. So here we go. I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna be very careful here. I'm actually gonna stand up for this one. First things first, grab the water dish. I'm gonna put this water dish just over here in this corner. I actually want to keep that leaf litter in here as well and put some in here because that's gonna look pretty good. But for the tarantula itself, very calm. At this point, I'm not even touching it for the transfer. You can use a catch cup if you wish. I recommend it for anyone who is not used to tarantulas. If you are used to them, then probably already have your own methods of transferring. I know I have mine. She jumps in, and she is up against the little barrier I have there, so she's looking good. I'm gonna put some leaf litter in here for her. Just kind of around the cork bark. Okay, I've got her into the corner there now, and she is all good. Now that's done, close that up. Get the locks for it, which are obviously off camera. I'll just hold it here for now just in case. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is setting up your first arboreal tarantula. In this case, it's an avicularia. And I think it's going to make a great beginner. I'm really excited about this enclosure. I think it turned out great. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you guys like it? I know the silver kind of looks a little tacky, but again, it's kind of all I can really do there. So hopefully it works out. And that's pretty much it. So thanks guys for watching. Let me know what you think down below. And good luck with your first tarantula if it is your first tarantula.